All right, we've been counted down. It's time for podcast number 2 with the still unnamed unnamed podcast, which I guess we can call like the Iconoclast Hour. That's if it lasts an hour, which probably isn't likely today. But anyway, we don't have a name, and that's just too fucking bad for now. So on with the show, as they say in the old days. First of all, I'd like to thank Sticky Paw Studio for helping me out with something I know absolutely nothing about. Getting me into the 21st century is probably a good thing in some ways, since I'm still stuck somewhere back in the 60s. But thanks to Sticky Paws for doing an awesome job on that first podcast to make me look somewhat professional. Also, again, a shout out to Circa Racing Sportsbook. In town, I went down there, put some money in their account, and they downloaded my app instantly, did everything for me, made it real easy for me to navigate something that I'm not overly comfortable with. And I've had a lot of fun with their props and yes, no's, which are all very fair. And a word about the yes, no's in his future book, which is rare in this city. Typically, future books have just the yes. So you can take 6-1 on Kentucky to win and 10-1 on Alabama to win and even money on Gonzaga to win. And as the teams get bet, they go down and nothing goes up. The only fair way to do a future book is to add the no part. When you add the no part, there's an option. You could bet yes, you could bet no. I know that's cliche, but it's also rather profound, because what that does is it gets the market set fairly and properly. If someone lays 22-1 on the no and the yes is 12-1, then it goes to 24-1 and 14-1 or something like that. You're always getting a fair price. That is highly unusual in today's sports betting world, and Circa Racing Sports, or just sports, I guess, I don't think they have a race book, deserves considerable praise for keeping things real down there and keeping things fair and allowing the customer to feel like they're not getting fucked over, which is all too common in Las Vegas nowadays. And now on to the show, where we will look at the Sweet 16. A couple points before that, I liked a lot of favorites over the weekend, and someone said I didn't think smart guys bet favorites. Well, of course, that comes from my era, and so I like history lessons. So the misnomer that smart guys only bet underdogs came from back in the 70s and 80s, before the three-point shot. If a team was ahead by 3 points, they would literally leave the court. Not kidding. Just see ya. Game over. We're walking off the court. You get your layup, and that's it. So the underdog, or the team that was behind, as it were, always got the last 2 points. So inherently, there was value in betting the underdog, since typically they're going to be behind. If they're not behind, they just win the game and you win your bet anyway. But the underdog always got the last 2 because the team walked off the court, not risking giving up a 3-point play. And even if they were 20 ahead, they would just sacrifice the last 2. That's what happened extremely often back then. So that's where that kind of like wise guys bet underdogs mentality came from. It's entirely not true. In fact, the best bets in sports, I believe, are focus favorites. That's for another day. Next point that I kind of wanted to talk about was, I alluded to power ratings last show, and I don't really think I got into it as much, and it may be a little confusing to some people. When I listen back, I can understand how people might be a little confused by that. So I was going to save this for the teaching part of this podcast, which is sometime in the future. But I think it's better to get a little bit of an idea out now. So I create a power rating, or as I like to say, a golf handicap sort of for each school. Now, if the coach is at the school year to year to year, typically that power rating plays within a pretty narrow range of numbers. If you're a 6 handicap, you might waver to a 7 or an 8 handicap, or maybe move up to a 4 or 5 handicap, but you're not going to probably deviate much from that once your game is set, given, that, or you're very young and improving, or you go and decide to practice your short game for, 10 hours a day. neither of which are likely. So year to year with the coach at the school, you can pretty much guess approximately what that school plays to. So my power ratings from year to year are not changing that much. When I talked about Oklahoma typically playing to a 90 or so, and they were up to a 94 or a 93 or a 92, that meant they were playing 2, 3, or 4 points higher than what they typically play to. And that just simply means that and I'm kind of fucking this up big time, but we'll rescue this. The Oklahoma teams under Lon Kruger would be a 90 or a 4 handicap, whatever. When they get to a 94, I would expect them at some point to revert towards that 90 again, because that is their typical power-rated number. The power-rated number is just a guess at how good the school is. And obviously, if a 90 plays a 96, the 96 is a 6-point favorite. It's as simple as that, and maybe I just made it all the more complicated. But I do want to kind of explain that the reason I said what they typically play to is coaches at the same school will have their team recruit the same type players, run the same kind of stuff, and typically play to a number that's approximate year to year. That was terrible, but we'll live with it. And I guess we should go on to the games. So here we go. We'll start and work our way down. The Elite Eight, Saturday and Sunday this week. And Gonzaga plays Creighton. And my number on this game is Gonzaga 11. Gonzaga had a very easy first game against Norfolk State, who was a 16 seed playing in from the MEAC conference. Robert Jones, the Norfolk State coach, was very disappointed in his team. The moment kind of got to him, and they didn't defend it all, and Gonzaga had a very easy go of it. However, it was 9-8 Norfolk early on, and Norfolk kind of was getting what they wanted every time down the floor. It all collapsed in a heap at some point, but little moments like that are always worth noting. It's how the game plays out is massively important to me, and even a 5-minute stint of Norfolk leading 9-8 may have some relevance in the future. It also may not, because they lost by 40 ultimately, but I did take note that Norfolk, when they ran their offense, got a lot of good shots. And similarly in round 2, Gonzaga got 10 down to Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma kind of surprised them. They came out and ran with them, which when you're the big underdog, you typically want to try to slow the game down, limit the possessions, and shorten the game and give yourself a better chance to win. If you're an underdog playing a 100-possession game or a 60-possession game, whatever it is, you're probably not going to win. If you can get it to like 40 possessions, obviously the fewer possessions, the better, the less risk you have of the other team's better talent or better coaching or combination of both taking over. So Oklahoma came out and said, all right, we're going to run with you. That's what we like to do. That's what we're going to do. And Gonzaga was knocked back a little bit, got 10 down, but it wasn't long before their super efficient offense took over and they kind of ran away with it to like a 19, 20-point lead and won rather comfortably. However, this is the first time that I think I saw some holes in Gonzaga's game. Their defense is not elite. It's not even close. I mean, few says they're a very good defensive team, but the reality is they're just okay. The problem is their offense is so fucking efficient. They have 5 elite ball handlers who know what they're doing at all times. And when you watch Gonzaga play, you'll see similarities to what Loyola Chicago does. Good offensive basketball is achieved by not dribbling. It's achieved by moving and passing and doing it at a well-timed, rapid fashion. Gonzaga obviously is super good at that, and Loyola Chicago, we'll talk about a little later, is perhaps even better. They're just ridiculous. So here's Gonzaga. They remain the favorite to win the whole thing. However, personally, I thought they were almost unbeatable. Their defense maybe is not quite good enough. They don't have a rim protector, and they're not elitely athletic. So there is some chance that someone could, maybe shoot a super high percentage against them and maybe beat them at their own game. Will that be Creighton? Probably not. Creighton had an excellent year this year. McDermott, just a terrific coach, been there a long time. Their path here, they were very lucky in the first round. They did not play well against Santa Barbara. They were kind of exposed a little bit for their lack of athleticism. And Santa Barbara missed 2 layups to win the game, pretty much. They ran a good play, and the guy didn't, I think it was Sau. I forget his name. Anyway, he just had to go up vertically, and he didn't. He kind of faded to his left a little bit, and it caused him to miss a bunny, pretty much. So they escaped that and then ran into upstart Ohio U, who handled Virginia, who was coming out of lockdown in the first round, and did so in a rather impressive way. They played an excellent game. However, what has not been the norm, which has been the norm for years, that the team that pulls that upset in the first round often collapses in a heap in round 2. They've had a day to overcome the joy of pulling that upset, and it's just not enough. You have to get yourself calmed down and focused in for the next game, and it's very, very difficult when you've pulled some big upset and maybe even surprised yourself by winning. They could say they're all there to win, but, not really. So Ohio U, who had a terrific year, great coaching job by Jeff Bowles, was pretty much just run out of the gym by Creighton. They did not play that well, and Creighton put in a much better effort than they did against Santa Barbara. It was just a much better matchup for them, and I think Ohio U was probably a little taxed by that. So the result is not entirely unexpected. So where does that leave Creighton against Gonzaga? Probably not in a very good place. This is a much better defensive team for Creighton, but they're not an elite defensive team. Their lack of athleticism was exposed a little bit by Santa Barbara. So, in a lot of ways, Gonzaga is just a way better version of Creighton, and I would expect the Gonzaga to win this game. However, Creighton is a far better team than Oklahoma, and Oklahoma had moments where it looked like they could perhaps even pull the upset. And I think Creighton has a good shot to hang in there and keep this one close. I wouldn't bet a lot of money on it, but that's the only side I have. So on to USC and Oregon. They played earlier in the year, and USC blew them out. But in that game, Oregon was still a little beat up. It was their third game in 5 days. And USC ran them out in the first 5 minutes, and it was game over. How does that play out in this game? I think it means absolutely nothing. It was just a really good spot for USC against a shorthanded, worn-out team, and it was just over very quickly. USC's path here has been very simple. Back-to-back blowouts over Drake and Kansas. They were eerily similar. The COVID has definitely affected how this tournament has played out. Drake won their playing game against Wichita, a war that they came on late and won the game. But they're playing a little shorthanded, and they've had a ton of bad things happen this year, and I think it just finally caught up. They hung in there for a long way. They're a very, very good team, but they got worn down, and USC ran them out eventually. Round 2 against Kansas, where I kind of expected Kansas to be able to beat USC, but maybe I just expected Bill Self to have a clue what he was doing. I can't totally blame him. They showed that maybe they weren't ready for this tournament in the first round against Eastern Washington. They were pretty much completely outcoached and totally outplayed, and just their superior talent won out eventually. It was nothing more than that. And then round 2, they had nothing left. McCormick had come back from his COVID issues, and he had no game at all, game 2. I forget the other kid's name, who he barely played. He was useless, and the team just had absolutely no energy, and the game was over. So COVID definitely got to Kansas. It's been a long, miserable year for these kids. The coaches talk about, that they just want to see their families, and they can't. They're in a total lockdown mode there. They call it the bubble, but it's almost like jail. They have to be socially distanced. They have to stay away from everybody, and they can't, hug their kids. And, the players can't see their parents, and it's just it's been hard. And it's been hard on everybody, but it's been really hard on these kids who are supposed to be enjoying this. But, it's just a money grab, but that's for another day. So USC's had a very easy time, very impressive, very athletic. I'm not going to get into the players. That's not my gig, but they're a very good team. And Oregon had a first-round bye as COVID screwed poor Virginia Commonwealth. They had multiple positive tests and couldn't field the team. And Oregon got a pass into the round 2. And again, even though, playing one game typically is not a big deal, I think in this COVID year that has been so hard on teams, where they had no preseason, they had practices limited and often short-circuited, stopping and starting, and it's just been a complete shit show, as it has been all over the world, but especially in trying to play basketball during this, it's been really hard, and I think that has skewed a lot of these results. A lot of these teams have just had nothing in the tank, and the results are some real anomalous scores and some blowouts that were unexpected. Just USC Kansas by 38 or whatever the hell it was is just not even possible. But it was just the men against the boys. Or actually, it was a team that was ready to play against a team that had nothing left. So Oregon getting that pass, playing for 40 minutes, I actually think means a lot. It allowed them to be totally rested for this game. Iowa had shot the lights out against Grand Canyon, ran out to a big lead, but was never totally comfortable. So they had to put out enough energy that they were at a slight disadvantage this game, energy-wise. And Oregon took advantage. Oregon's had a year of many, many injuries. At this point, however, all hands on deck, all hands healthy, and many of them super fresh. And that freshness was helped out with that first round bye, and they came in and just murdered Iowa. It was a complete mismatch. It was over about 10 minutes into the game, and very clearly Oregon was going to solve Iowa's piss-poor defense, and they made mincemeat out of them. So the first game against USC that Oregon played is a toss, as I said before. I don't think there's anything like revenge. It means nothing. Both these teams want to win, obviously, and they're going to give it their all. My number in the game is pick, and USC has been bet up to 2.5-point favorite, so I'm definitely going to bet Oregon. And I think there's more reasons to bet Oregon than that. The first game USC played in that fantastic spot against a team that was not quite healthy yet. They're only 3.5 at home. So already 2.5 on a neutral court is a pretty inflated line. But also it's Dana Altman against Andy Enfield. Altman, just one of the best NCAA tournament coaches of all time, has a lot of tricks in his arsenal. And I would not be surprised if he pulled something out of the bag that USC has not seen yet. They have a whole week to get ready for this. They've played one less game, although USC has had 2 easy games. You still have to play for 40 minutes, and that seems to matter. Seems. Everything here is just, you're always just guessing. That's what handicapping is. At least from my way, where I'm not using a computer. I'm just, trying to logic things out. Let's not go there. Scratch that thought that entered my brain. So I think Oregon, I think the number is wrong, and I think the coaching edge is massively in their favor. And I think Oregon will beat USC, and I think it's a very good bet. And now to the East, that was the West. Since I'm not going to do a podcast, Gonzaga will beat either USC or Oregon and do it probably rather handily. So just throw that out there. I would expect to see Gonzaga in the Final Four, which is nothing profound and nothing tricky. It's just expected, and they got a cupcake draw, and they should be there. On to the West, where Michigan plays Florida State. Not an unexpected matchup here. It's probably what figured to be. Michigan, without Livers, had Texas Southern, the 16 seed, who also had to win a playing game and then play. Again, it's kind of not a good dynamic for that, and they had a 20-point lead in halftime and coasted home. Then they played LSU, who had an impressive win over St. Bonaventure in the first round, but Michigan was in a world of shit in this game and had a couple guys come off the bench who don't normally score that much. And again, I'm not good with names of players or what they're running and all the rest of that stuff. It really doesn't mean that much to me. Sometimes I'll throw it out there to sound smart, but really it's just a bunch of bullshit. But these two gentlemen came off the bench. All of a sudden, they're lighting things up, and Michigan's has a huge advantage on the front line against LSU, and probably wore them down a little bit. LSU's kind of mindless too, and takes a lot of bad shots during the game. And Michigan eventually got it. They're still, even without Livers, is still a very highly rated team. And with Phil Martelli lurking as an assistant, you can bet your ass they're going to run really good offense. Juwan Howard's done an amazing job there and brought that family type atmosphere to a major power is a formula for winning. Let's say that, and they've done a lot of that this year. However, Florida State's a whole different animal. Florida State in the first round had a tough one against Greensboro. Who just as I talked about in the first podcast, it was not a matchup that Greensboro was probably thrilled with, but Greensboro played their asses off and played extremely well, and the game was on 4 pretty late in the game. I think Florida State got the last 6 to win by 10, but it was a really tough battle, and Florida State played well to win. That was a tough out for them, and that was a good win for them. And then came Colorado, who ran their offense about as well as you can run it in their first run over Georgetown, but now these freak athletes that Florida State threw at them was a whole different world, and Florida State defends at a very high level, and just was just too athletic for Colorado, who eventually just mailed it in, and the blowout happened, and I didn't quite expect it to be that easy. Colorado made a little run to get the lead early in the midway through the first half, but then Florida State made a run and eventually pulled away, and it was game over. I think Michigan should be about a 1-point favorite in this game, maybe 1.5, depending on how much you think Livers' injury matters. I tend not to be big on injuries, but he's been out in the past, and it's affected them profoundly. This is a better version of last year's team when his injury really mattered. But Michigan is playing to, again, and here we go again. So your typical Michigan team under Beeline was probably about a 92 rating. And with Juwan Howard, it's hard to know because he hasn't been there that long. But this team has got up to like 100, which is just absurdly good. So if anything, I'd expect them to correct themselves and maybe head back towards that, typical program number of 92-ish. And with Livers' injury, obviously it's this terrific year that they've had, this overachieving year they've had, this number that they've reached that they've never reached before, is built on talent, but I think a lot of it's built on chemistry too. And with one of the key cogs out, that chemistry could be damaged a little bit. So there is a good chance that Michigan falls off a little bit. LSU wasn't the right team to take advantage of it. And I think Florida State is. Their athletes are many and elite, and their defense is just terrific. And I think that they will bother Michigan enough that an upset is not. I mean, they're only a small 3-point underdog anyway, so it's not like it's some great selection here. Like, oh wow, you're picking Florida State, Michigan. It's really not a big deal. But I think Florida State has the athletes to make Michigan's life miserable. Michigan hasn't seen anything really like this in the Big Ten, and I think Florida State's got a good chance to win this one. So I'll be betting something on them. UCLA and Alabama. Well, Alabama was kind of my sleeper pick to win it all. I did take 29-1 at Circa on their yes-nos to win it all, which was very fair. And they have not disappointed. Let's start with UCLA since they're higher on the bracket. They won their playing game from way behind against Michigan State, an absolute miracle. They were down 5 with 30 seconds to go, got it to overtime, and drew away there. Round 2 against BYU, who was fresh and ready and had a home run year this year. I would have thought BYU would take them out. UCLA had one guy played 45 minutes. The Mexican kid, I forget his name. Maybe Vasquez. I don't know. Again, I'm not good with names. It doesn't mean anything. People throw the names out there and what they're running and all that stuff. It all sounds good and it can be very informative and fun to hear. But as far as picking the winner, I don't think it means shit. still, it's always good to have knowledge, always good to learn, and it may matter. It's just, to my way of thinking, it doesn't matter that much. So that's why I don't know names, and that's why I'm often lacking in basketball knowledge. 5'8" Jews, basketball is not their thing usually. Baseball was my thing, and ironically, the only sport I didn't play, basketball, is how I've earned a living my entire adult life. So that's our aside for the last 5 minutes. So UCLA played extremely well in beating BYU. I will say BYU got a lot of stuff, a lot of open shots that they missed, and it just kind of got away from them. Was it expected? Yes, no. I thought UCLA may have gotten a little worn down by that overtime game. That was not the case at all. They played with a lot of energy from start to finish, got the lead early and never gave it up. BYU had a rough go of it, though, missing a lot of open looks, and it could have played out a little differently, but props to UCLA. Cronin's very, very good, and they won very comfortably. The next round, they had Abilene Christian, fresh off their upset over Texas. And as I mentioned before, sometimes these upstarts, sometimes these underdogs, or Cinderellas, whatever the hell you want to call them, when they pull an upset in the first round, it's very, very difficult to come back and play with the same energy in the second round. And Abilene Christian just did not play that well. They didn't make any shots. It could have been because maybe their legs were a little gone. They didn't make any shots in the first round either, but Texas just was so bad it didn't matter. And Abilene Christian defended them very well, but Texas's lack of offense did not bode well there. UCLA spaced them out, made it tough on them, and hit some shots, and it was over very, very early. And again, I think it was more because Abilene Christian the moment was too much. The coach talked about how he hopes that he can get them calmed down after beating Texas. They beat the big team from their state, and it was a big deal. It's almost like mission accomplished for them. So playing UCLA, if they lost, big deal. They've already made their mark. They've already claimed the state of Texas as theirs. And it figured to be a tricky game for them. It didn't stop me from pissing away my money on them, but that's handicapping. I thought where other underdogs had played well the second game that they might too, but they didn't. And UCLA took advantage and ran them out. Alabama, again, my sleeper pick to win it all, had Rick Pitino and Iona in the first round, and they didn't make any shots, but a lot of that was because Iona just played it extremely well. That was props to Pitino. He really had that team ready, and they made Alabama's life miserable. And Alabama eventually got them by like 11 or something, but it wasn't easy. But again, they missed a lot of shots, but they took a lot of bad shots too. Iona defended them really well, which is hard to do. Alabama's very hard to guard, but Iona got them in a half-court game, and that's not what Alabama necessarily wants. And that was a tough game to win, but they got there. And now came Maryland, the team they matched up almost perfectly with. Maryland jammed the interior against Connecticut, daring them to shoot from the outside. Connecticut didn't make a shot. Maryland shot the lights out, and they moved on. But Maryland shot well again. However, Alabama was like 16 out of 33 from three-point land. A team that had been blistering the nets for the first couple months of the year had definitely struggled from the outside January, February, and parts of March. They did not struggle in this game. Their offense was operating extremely efficiently, and when that happens, they are very, very difficult to beat. That's the reason I think that this is the one team that could beat Gonzaga. They can hit threes at a very, very high rate, and as mentioned prior, Gonzaga's defense is beatable. So if anyone's going to beat Gonzaga, it will be Alabama. Other than that, it's Gonzaga's tournament. As for this game, I think UCLA is in way, way over their heads. My number in this game is Alabama 10, believe it or not. And I don't know what Cronin can do to stop the onslaught here. It's Alabama. Alabama has a five-star recruit from Villanova, Quinterly, coming off the bench. Yes, he should start, but he plays better off the bench, so he brings him off the bench. But the fact that they have the ability to use an elite talent like that off the bench as a sixth man shows you the depth of talent that Alabama has. Jones did not play well against Maryland. He's their key guy, and it didn't matter. They got that little guard back. I forget his name. He played extremely well. So, again, here's a team that's very healthy. And, even with a week to get ready, I don't know what Cronin can do to stop this from being a blowout. I'm sure he'll come up with something. He's very, very good. But I would expect Alabama to win this game and win it rather convincingly. But, it's Mick Cronin. He's pretty good. But I'm not mentioning that as an excuse. I'm going to betting Alabama -6. So that's that. Now, I think Alabama will beat either Michigan or Florida State, whoever it is. And then here we go with Alabama Gonzaga in the Final Four. That'll be just an amazing game. It could be an amazing game. Alabama's going to have to bomb in a lot of threes to beat them. But I think, and I'm repeating myself, they're the one team that can do it. So that'll be a game to certainly look forward to. And I'm certainly looking forward to it because I definitely bet Alabama to win that region too. And I can't imagine, having watched Michigan play, I can't imagine Michigan beating them. But Alabama's had their moments of not making any shots and maybe not taking the best of shots. So, it's just a basketball game. Anything's possible. On to the South, where Baylor plays Villanova. And I made Baylor 6. The line is 6.5, so obviously we're not betting this, but let's talk about it a little bit. Baylor's path here, they played Hartford and John Gallagher in the first round, and it took a while before their athleticism took control. As mentioned in podcast number 1, I have mega respect for John Gallagher, as I think most coaches in the country do. And, he did the best he can with what he had. Really, really solid job this year. In round 2 came Wisconsin, a team that had a big advantage to start the year with 5 starters coming back, but really kind of lacked talent and to hang with the big boys. And Baylor was just too athletic for him. And Baylor played really well. They surprised me. When I've watched Baylor in the past, I think their shot selection leaves something to be desired. And some of the offense they run leaves something to be desired. But they played very, very well against a Wisconsin team that maybe, one thought could have got them slowed down and got them in a half-court game. But that wasn't the case. Baylor knows Baylor knows what they want to do, and they go out and do it. It doesn't matter who's there. That's kind of a stupid way to say it, but that's, oh well. Like, I'm just completely winging this, boys. There's no notes, no nothing. I'm just talking out of my asshole here and hoping it works. But, impressed by Baylor. I have a kind of a different view of them. I think they're as good as I've had them rated there. I have them rated very, very highly for the program, and I think maybe they're legit. As for Villanova, not entirely unexpected. Everyone had Winthrop beating them, all the retards on ESPN who, pretty much don't know much about picking a winner, thought that Winthrop was the 12-5 upset that is so popular among whatever they are, announcers, I don't know, and analysts. That's not really accurate either, is it? Is it really not analysts? They're just, you know what? Let's just stop there. Anyway, I gave my reasons why I thought Villanova would beat them. It's an elite team against a Big South team. And if we think about that in the terms I talked about before, where things don't change much from year to year, given the same coach at the same program. Villanova has won national championships, and Winthrop's won the Big South championship. And just that dynamic alone, just looking at it that simplistically, would allow you to know that Villanova probably was going to be hard to beat in that game. Now, Villanova played very, very well to win that game. They also got a few good calls to go their way, I believe. I was completely neutral to the game. I didn't bet either side, so I watched it semi-objectively. And the Tennessee transfer there, Burns, got foul trouble for Winthrop, and he's their main guy. And when he went out, Villanova took advantage and got there. But that fourth foul call was, but props to Villanova. That was a tough game for them, and they overcame it. They're still down their point guard, but the freshman who came in knows what he's doing and knows his limitations. And it's Jay Wright. He knows what he's doing. And Round 2, North Texas was that upstart I talked about. We talked about how it was the men against the boys, 6 seniors on North Texas against 3 freshmen for Purdue that play a lot of minutes, and the seniors won out. However, as we have seen, what I thought was common, which hasn't necessarily been totally common this year, but the upstart upset winner in round 1 got bludgeoned in round 2, and it was pretty much there was nothing they could have done anyway. Villanova just bombed in threes. I think they had 15 threes in this game and just shot the lights out and ran out to a big lead, and that was it. Villanova's getting more comfortable with the freshman point guard, whose name I can't possibly pronounce. It's a very long one beginning with C. That's what I know. Baylor probably can't be thrilled about seeing a former national champion in their bracket and perennial top 10 team. Even as damaged goods, Villanova's mega dangerous. Jay Wright's terrific. I definitely give him the edge over Scott Drew, but I that lack of mega point guard could work against Villanova here. That's probably enough to give Baylor the edge, and they're going to have to bomb in a lot of threes to win this game too. They certainly could. With a week to get ready, I'm sure Villanova will have a very good game plan and will be executing it. And I think Baylor will win. I'm not betting either side, but if Villanova beat them, it wouldn't shock me. So then comes Arkansas and Oral Roberts. Strangely enough, these two met earlier in the year, and Arkansas was a 19.5-point favorite in that game. That's when they were running roughshod over everybody. Arkansas began by getting 14 down to Colgate, and props to Eric Busselman for talking to his assistants the night before and bringing out this pressure defense that they really haven't used much all year. And Colgate, who had only faced Patriot League teams, could not handle it. The 14-point lead disappeared on a 17-0 run by Arkansas. Colgate, showing the resolve of a championship-type team, which they are, rallied to get ahead 6 in the second half. But, again, the referees were a little dicey here, and all the calls went Arkansas's way. Colgate was in foul trouble. They couldn't handle the athleticism and the pressure that Arkansas was putting on them. It got them sped up a little bit, and the free-flowing offense that ran them out to the 14-point lead came to a screeching halt, and Arkansas ultimately won by 17 on a game that was a lot closer than the final score. Then they got Texas Tech in the second round, another tough out. Chris Beard obviously would have his team ready, and a little note here, Musselman was overjoyed to win. He's been kind of dissed by some in the press as they thought he was in over his head against Chris Beard, which is a little strange given Bill Musselman was Eric Musselman's dad, so he has unbelievable pedigree. Bill Musselman was one of the all-time great coaches, one of the all-time great basketball minds, really an innovator. So I'm sure Eric learned a lot from his dad, and he's did extremely well at Nevada, Reno. He's elevated Arkansas's program to place them been in a very, very, very long time, even better than the Nolan Richardson teams who made Final Fours and I think even won a championship with it. I don't know if they beat Duke or not. I don't remember. So long ago, and I'm getting old. But a really fantastic game, Arkansas and Texas Tech. I was surprised Beard got into a bit of a track meet with him, but he knows what he's doing way better than I do, and Arkansas was about to get away from him, and then like so many teams, Texas Tech was not ready to go away, and the underdog always, the team that's behind sometimes plays a little extra pizzazz, and sometimes the other team plays to hold on, and Arkansas barely held on in a game that looked like it was going to be an easy one. So another excellent effort by Arkansas in beating Texas Tech. And now comes Oral Roberts, a team they faced early in the year. Oral Roberts beat a rather beaten down, worn out, and really just an awful effort by Ohio State, who just wasn't ready for this game at all. Again, I think COVID has a lot to do with this stuff. I think a lot of these kids are really, you you're always, the NCAA tournament's a great betting situation because you know you're going to get a true result. Both teams are all in to win every game, and that has not been the case this tournament. There have been a lot of clinkers, a lot of teams that seemed disinterested, a lot of teams that just mailed it in. Ohio State wasn't one of them. I think they're just kind of worn down from a long year. They're a little beat up. They played in the Big Ten finale on Sunday, and you know, you're a big favorite, a 2 seed, and you take the team a little lightly, and that was enough. And Oral Roberts played extremely well and beat him. Oral Roberts, Florida was a different case. It was more Mike White just pissing the game away. So Oral Roberts' point guard is terrific, and another guy that's very, very talented, and they shoot a ton of threes. They lead the country in three-pointers made. I think they lead the country in free throw percentage too, but that's neither here nor there. But the bottom line is you have to cut the head off of the snake, like they say. So you need to get this point guard frazzled, sped up, taken out of the game, whatever you want to say. And Florida had these freaky talented players to do it. They have these freak athletes who could just torture this kid. Just trap the point guard. Get the ball out of his hands. Make someone else, run the offense. Or just full court press this team, which he also has in his arsenal. He chose to do none of the above. He let Oral Roberts kind of run their stuff. And eventually, running their stuff was too much for Florida. They got a little worn down and was still 11 ahead with 9 minutes to go. I mean, the game should have been theoretically over. But Mike White said his team was a little tired, and he was unable to impress upon his team the importance of each possession. They take a lot of bad shots. They do a lot of really just dumb things out there. But I kind of blame the coach for this one. I think he should have got this. He could have just pressed the whole game here and just even going 9-10 deep. Who cares? I mean, his 9th and 10th players, I'm sure, are better than a lot of what Oral Roberts throws out there. But Oral Roberts runs really good offense, and ultimately, here's Mike White in a very strange 1-3-1 half-court zone, and Mills, the coach of Oral Roberts, told his freshmen, you can hit shots from the corner, go out there and hit this one. We'll get you open. And against the 1-3-1, you can get open corner threes if you run your stuff properly, and they did, and he hit it, and that gave them the lead, and eventually they came from 11 down to win it. Florida kind of played not to lose. Mike White said they were tired. That's kind of a cop-out. He kind of like butchered it, just took the air out of the ball, played not to lose, a la Rutgers, and they lost. So Oral Roberts went to Arkansas in the pre-conference and led 40-30 at the half. They were in the midst of a long road trip where they battled some good teams and were really impressive during that run. Arkansas eventually very quickly got the lead in the second half, actually, and did pull away at the end. How does that impact this game? Unlike the USC-Oregon game, which was a complete throwaway for Oregon, I think that matters here a little bit. The fact that Oral Roberts led this team by 10 at the half will certainly keep Arkansas very, very focused for this. They're a big favorite in the game. I made them 12. The line's 11. The threat that Oral Roberts threw at them in the first game, I think, will work against Oral Roberts in this game. Arkansas is very aware of what they're going to do. I don't think Oral Roberts is going to change anything. It's been very successful. The offense they run is very good, but I just can't imagine Arkansas's athletes and familiarity and somewhat familiarity with this team not somehow make it kind of easy for them to win this game. I've kind of dissed Florida State. I thought Florida was stealing against them in the second round, which is why I'm kind of pissed about that game. And I kind of think Arkansas will kill them here, too, for reasons aforementioned. I think that first game will definitely work against Oral Roberts. And I would expect Arkansas to win this kind of comfortably. I wouldn't recommend going crazy on any kind of bet, but I think that's the only side to have, maybe if it goes down a little more. And then Arkansas-Baylor, I don't see how Arkansas could beat that team. If it's Arkansas-Villanova, it's like, maybe I think the winner of Baylor-Villanova will beat the winner of Arkansas-Oral Roberts. Let's say that. And finally, this somewhat shaky podcast will come to a close with Loyola Chicago at Oregon. So, you know what? Save that for last. That's the joy there. So, Syracuse and Houston. Once again, Syracuse, as a low seed, has made teams' lives miserable with their zone. San Diego State had no fucking clue what to do against it. game over very quickly. And now West Virginia, who does have a clue, a major clue, and they too got way down against this zone. It's just so hard to emulate what they do. And Boeheim, give him credit. I can't stand it, but credit to him for putting a little more nuance into this zone. He changes things up and even does it during the game at times. There's no reason to talk about what that is, as I probably couldn't really describe it anyway. But I did expect West Virginia to solve it. And they did finally solve it. They actually got the lead in the second half. And then in a tie game, Huggins is screaming at his team. And Huggins in his press conference was in tears. He really loves his team, and he knew this was a very good draw for him. Moorhead and then the winner of Syracuse, San Diego State figured to be Sweet 16 easily, and then from there, who knows? West Virginia was the one team this year that gave Gonzaga fits. They were a block charge away from maybe beating them. And the call went against them, and Gonzaga ultimately won by 5, but that was their only close contest this entire year, outside of the conference tournament final against BYU where they got like 10 down, but that was kind of easy ultimately too. So West Virginia had back in their minds, we can play the number one team in the country to the wire. This might be our year. And Huggins knew that, and Huggins likes this team. This team's been very, very coachable. He got rid of the Deadwood, that Schwebe transferred at mid-semester. Huggins went to kind of a 4-out look, and his offense has been elite, and it just figured they'd be able to get shots off against his zone. But it took a while. They got the lead, and then from the bench, Huggins is screaming, "Don't switch, don't switch, don't switch," and they kept switching. As Huggins described in the podcast, in the press conference, he said, "We wanted to play big on Buddy being Buddy Boeheim, the coach's son, who's been hitting threes at an obnoxiously high rate." And West Virginia switched, and their worst defender was on Boeheim, and he was a short defender. They didn't play big on him. And Boeheim hit back-to-back shots, and the game was over, sadly. And West Virginia's out. So Syracuse impressively moves along to play Houston, who murdered Cleveland State in the first round. They just completely outmanned them. And listening to that press conference, the coach for Cleveland State, Dennis Gates, who I absolutely love, said that this team is good enough to win the national championship. So, again, these coaches know more than I know, and I listened. So I kind of thought Rutgers had a chance in round 2, but I listened to Coach Gates and just left it alone. And sure enough, Rutgers is ahead like 10 in the second half. And again, for some reason, they played not to lose, a la Florida. And they started running the shot clock down, and they couldn't get a good shot off. And Houston changed defenses. They played some man. They played some zone, something that they don't normally do. And it all spiraled out of control for Rutgers. And Houston, who had been kept off the boards pretty well by Rutgers the whole game, their wings now crashed and got some rebounds. And as Kelvin Sampson said, we are a second-shot team, not a first-shot team. And so Houston, who did not play well, admittedly, and did not shoot well, found their way through this game. Rutgers kind of handed it to them. And now they get Syracuse. So, again, this zone that Syracuse presents gives teams fits. However, I made Houston 8 in this game. The line is 6, so I will be betting Houston for something. But in the back of my mind, I know that zone has been a nightmare for teams. But they do have a week to get ready, and Houston's athleticism is really something to behold. And, Buddy Boeheim will have a very hard time getting his shot off here, and I don't think I don't see Syracuse scoring much in this game at all. And I think Houston's athleticism takes over. Whether they make three-pointers or not, I think they're going to get a lot of rebounds and they're going to get a lot of turnovers. And I think they'll win this game pretty comfortably. And they will face the winner of Loyola Chicago and Oregon State. Oregon State just on an unbelievable run, like picked to finish 12th in the Pac-12. Wayne Tinkle is just done an incredible job. They won 4 games in 4 days. Was it 4 games in 4 days? I think it was, to win the Pac-12 tournament. And then incredibly, I loved Tennessee in the first round against Oregon State. I thought it was a complete mismatch. And, of course, I ran out to get food, and the first score I see is 27-11. I said, well, that's good. Except the problem was Oregon State was ahead 27-11. Tennessee was a complete no-show. Another team, I think, that has been affected by this COVID situation, because if anything, that team should have been very, very fresh. They'd only played 3 games in 3 weeks going into that. And Rick Barnes talked about how he needed that, his team needed that rest, but they just completely didn't show up for this game and were ill-prepared, it seemed. And by the time they did go to some full-court press out of desperation, they made a little run, but that was quickly rebuffed as Oregon State's confidence was at an all-time high, and they were just running their stuff pretty freely, and Tennessee had no answers at all. Really disgusting display of basketball from them. But props to Oregon State for continuing their Cinderella story. And now comes Oak State, a team that was granted a reprieve. They were on a probation, but they have the supposed lottery pick. I don't think he's a lottery pick anymore. He kind of embarrassed himself, Cade Cunningham. Totally disinterested in the Liberty game, and then once again, totally disinterested in his Oregon State game. Just a really poor effort from Oak State, and Oregon State took advantage. On the other end of the spectrum, we have Loyola Chicago. Just, I'll tell you, if you want to watch how basketball should be played, this is the team to watch. On both ends of the floor, the defense is elite and brilliant, and 5 move is 1. They just know what they're doing at all times. They're in the proper place at all times. They rarely make a mistake. And Moser will change it for who he's playing. They'll do something entirely different this game than they did against Illinois, who presented a unique set of problems, but they solved them. And Illinois helped them a little bit too. But talk about the Georgia Tech game. Loyola was fortunate. Georgia Tech again was not thrilled with the refereeing, and Loyola eventually warmed down a little bit. They're a little short-handed, Georgia Tech, and Loyola eventually, they played well. Both teams played well. That was a really high-level game, and Loyola eventually got them to face Illinois. And just was unbelievable in that game against Illinois. I mean, they barely made a mistake on both sides of the ball. It was just an absolute joy to watch. Their offense is super cool. It's got hints of that Princeton offense, and they use Krutwig as like the point center, which is very Princetonian-like. The one kind of player, I remember they kind of ran a lot, was they ran kind of a weave around the foul line with Krutwig and one of their guards, not their point guard. It wasn't Norris. It was someone else. And, Krutwig dribbled, handed it off, and now was screening, and he and it gave all kinds of options. The handoff, Krutwig would roll, the standard kind of pick and roll thing, and if they didn't react quick enough, the ball was there, and he had a layup or a dunk. Or if they hedged towards Krutwig, it gave the guy who took the handoff an open shot. But everything they did was just perfection, just joyous. And a team like Illinois, who certainly top 5 team in the country, never made a run in this game. It's just Loyola got out to a 13-point lead and maybe got it to 9 or 7. That was it. Just an incredible effort from Loyola Chicago, and given that they're a Missouri Valley Conference team with really, not overwhelming talent, it's just incredible what's been accomplished there. It's this team's way better than that Final Four team, and now they're facing Oregon State, a team that they're a super intelligent team, but just completely lacks athletes. And my original thought was I made the game 10, so I definitely like Loyola Chicago, but it's kind of a tricky line to make. Do you believe all this Oregon State has done? They've won 1 million games in a row as an underdog in all of them. And, but as mentioned, I think they beat an apathetic Tennessee team and a really disinterested Oak State team. So, they played well, but I think it was more their opponent not giving 2 shits than them, being some great team. And you would think an intelligent team like Oregon State would handle the intelligence that Loyola Chicago presents. However, and I think this is the key point here. Loyola Chicago plays a team called Drake, who was in this tournament, who is cerebral as it gets, and handled them with ease when it mattered. If they can handle Drake with ease, there's no way that Oregon State hangs with them either, and I would expect Loyola Chicago to beat them rather handily. So I'll be betting Loyola Chicago minus 6.5, I believe is the current line. Who knows what it'll be when this podcast comes out. But anyway, as for the next round, Loyola Chicago against Houston is just I couldn't tell you. It's a pick'em game, and they handled Illinois' athleticism. Houston's a different kind of set of problems, but it's Porter Moser. The problem is it'll be Porter Moser on one-day prep, but that one-day prep didn't hurt him against Illinois. Like, this team just knows what the hell they're doing, and they're going to be very, very hard to beat. Like, if they were facing Gonzaga or Bama in the finale, it wouldn't shock me. So, that's it, boys. Watch Loyola Chicago play basketball. That's how you do it. Just brilliant. Just so impressive. Like, I'm repeating myself now, but it's really as a fan of basketball, it's fun to see a team that really does do it the right way. That's it. I hope this made some sense. I'm leaving Las Vegas tomorrow, back to Connecticut, and what I hope to do, just as a FYI, see, I can use modern lingo, right? I hope to do an interview. I'm told that we can do this via Zoom. I'm told that Sticky Paw here will help me with that. And again, I thank them for their professionalism and making this old man look kind of good here on the podcast. So you can look forward to hopefully some very cool interviews, which I will not talk about, and then eventually this will be very much a teaching handicapping podcast, among other things. We're going to talk the games, of course. I'm not going to just bore you with, by being didactic or whatever the word is. But so that's it for now. I am out of here, and thanks for listening. Oh, yeah. Fuck. How stupid am I? Yeah, don't stop this thing yet. So this shirt, right. I wanted to show this shirt. Can I show the shirt? So this shirt here, yeah, talking to the mic, Boston. So this shirt here is, fuck. Look like Joe Biden, huh? This shirt here is massively important to me. And, ladies, you're not going to see what's underneath it. Sorry. But this is, can I get away from the mic? Just speak from there. All right. So that's the shirt. And that is John Chaney, longtime coach at Temple, Philly legend, my hero. And Dick Girardi, the great sports writer for the Philadelphia Daily News, went to John Chaney's Hall of Fame induction and got an autographed shirt. This is from 2001. I had not worn this shirt yet, ever, until podcast number 1. So this is the second time I'm wearing this shirt. John Chaney passed away not long ago. It was a good crying session that night, and his importance in many of people's lives is indescribable, really. And Philly basketball is obviously important in my life. I went to school in Philly and the Palestra, and just watching Chaney there, just brilliant, real throwback, old school guy. And I can't say enough of the joy he brought me and many others, and the importance he had on so many people's lives in Philly. So thanks to Mr. Girardi for getting me this 20 years ago now, and thanks to John Chaney for being you. And that's all, boys.